Good afternoon and welcome to Countryside Classrooms with me, Terry Behan. In these episodes of Countryside Classrooms we're going to be talking about wood pigeon decoying. We're going to be talking about why we shoot wood pigeons, who gives us permission, the general licences in which we conform, the damage that wood pigeons do. We're going to be talking about things like the rotary and when to use them and when not to use them, the various types of decoys you can get from full bodies to shells to foams. We're going to be talking about flappers, hide building. These episodes are really aimed at the beginner, but some people may find some useful tips in them. I hope you enjoy them and I hope you join us for the episodes to come. Okay, in this episode of wood pigeon decoying we're going to talk about why we shoot wood pigeons, we're going to talk about who shoots wood pigeons, and we're going to talk about the general licence itself. But before we do that I want to give you some fun wood pigeon facts. Now, a lot of people don't realise that a wood pigeon is actually a very fast bird. On average they fly at 77 miles an hour and they've been actually clocked as fast as 92 miles an hour. That's very, very fast. I think an average teal flies at about 50 miles an hour and a peregrine falcon is somewhere around 65 miles an hour when flying. Also something to note is that wood pigeons actually see in a different colour spectrum. They also see UV, which is why when you look at a wood pigeon decoy like this, you'll see the white wing bars on its neck and you'll also see the white wing bars on its wings, which are actually indicators to other wood pigeons flying at the time. The typical lifespan of a wood pigeon in the UK is around 3 years old, but actually they've been known to grow as old as 17 years in the UK. They have a wingspan of 31 inches, which is quite a large bird actually with a small body, and that makes them very agile. In the air they can dip, they can turn, quite an acrobatic bird. Another thing with a wood pigeon is that they mainly nest between April and October. They have 2 eggs per clutch and they incubate them for up to 17 days. And they'll have 1 to 3 clutches per year, so in theory each female, each breeding pair of pigeons can have up to 6 wood pigeons per year, which is quite a lot if you think. There are actually 5.4 million breeding pairs in the UK as we stand here today, which means that there's around 10.8 million wood pigeons in the country already. And if each one of them has 6 younglings that survive, you're obviously over 60 million pigeons in a year, which is quite a significant number. Okay, so why do we actually decoy wood pigeons? Well, there's various reasons under the general licence to dispatch wood pigeons and shoot wood pigeons. But for the purpose of decoying, we're generally doing it for crop protection. They're a major agricultural pest. Their number increased by 134% between 1970 and 2011. Historically, they're believed to cause crop damage to an estimated value of 1.2 million per year on cereal crops and 2.2 million on oilseed rape throughout the year. Now, these figures are historical, and due to the large increase in wood pigeon population since that time, estimates are no longer available. So, who actually gives us permission to shoot wood pigeons? And I can hear a lot of you now saying, well, the farmer, the landowner. In a way that's correct, but what they give you is permission to shoot over their land. The person that really gives us permission to shoot wood pigeons is Natural England, and in recent times with DEFRA. This licence, the general licence, permits landowners and occupiers of authorised people to carry out a range of otherwise prohibited activities against a species of wild birds listed on the licence. Generally, the general licence is reissued every January, so you should always be checking to make sure that you are aware of the latest changes or terms before you go out year on year. Okay. For this next segment I want to talk about quarry identification. The wood pigeon is part of the wood pigeon and dove family. In the UK you can shoot obviously wood pigeons and you can shoot feral pigeons. You can no longer shoot the collared dove, you can't shoot the rock dove, the stock dove or the turtle dove, but it's really experience and quarry identification that will save you making any mistakes. So I'm going to upload some pictures here and you'll be able to see them, but we'll talk over them. So firstly, the wood pigeon you'll see has got a very broad white neck bar with very broad white wing bars. It's slightly larger than the other birds and flies completely different. In time and experience, you'll actually be able to tell which one of these is quite easily from a distance. They're also the bird that clusters up in large groups when they're out feeding on arable fields. The next bird we're going to look at will be the rock dove. The rock dove is very greyish blue, like a wood pigeon. It doesn't have the white wing bars, it doesn't have the neck bars, it has a pinkish blue cheek, it has black around the borders of its wings, and it also has black on the tail. The next picture that I'm going to show you, which is also protected, is the stock dove. The stock dove is a lighter grey pigeon. It has a darker band to its neck. It also has black wing tips right up underneath the wing and black tips of its tail. This is protected and can't be shot in the UK. The next one that I'm going to show you is the turtle dove. This is equally protected. The turtle dove is a very slight looking dove with a lighter black on the borders of its wings, but the easiest way to identify the turtle dove is to look on its wings. Where you would have the white wing bars of the wood pigeon, you can see that there's a light brown speckled, almost like a leopard. That way you can tell that it's a turtle dove. These are also protected in the UK. The final bird that I want to show you that is now protected from 2019 is the collared dove. The collared dove was removed from the general licence, and it is a lighter, sandier grey looking bird with a light brown wingtip and some dark on his tail, but you can see a very thin collar going round the back of his neck to the sides. That is the collared dove, and now can no longer be shot under the general licence in the UK. Okay, so before we get onto the practical stuff where we start building hides and showing you how to set up this equipment, I just wanted to talk to you just quickly about where to find wood pigeons and at what time of year. Now, everybody will tell you who knows anything about pigeon shooting, reconnaissance, meaning going out and watching the fields that you have permission to shoot over, is the key, because it can change any time of the year. There may be some grain that's been spilt, which means that in an unusual time of year you'd think, why are the pigeons there? And then when you walk up, they will be there and feeding. So reconnaissance is the key. But generally speaking, through the winter you want to be looking at rape, you want to be looking at winter wheat, and you want to be looking at old standing stubble. Springtime, like now, this is April, a lot of things have just been drilled. So you've had barley drilled, you've had wheat drilled, and peas have been put in. And subject to the weather, we're having some glorious weather down here in the east, the peas are starting to chip, and that is really where you need to be doing your essential crop protection. Something else to note for the wood pigeons is that they will hold 1,000 grains of wheat in their crop at any one time. You know, they can hold up to 20 acorns and 200 beans, and they will do that daily. So this is really why it's imperative that us as pigeon shooters and the guardians of the countryside are out there protecting the crops as and when we're needed. So later in the year you'll be going back to late drilled winter wheat and stuff like that, and then rolling back to oilseed rape, which is really where you will find the pigeons throughout the year. As a last resort, when everything else has gone and the berries are off the bushes have gone, they will go back to oilseed rape year on year. So reconnaissance is key, take that on board, and now let's go over and start looking at building some hides. And for this episode we're going to build a hide. I'm going to show you how to build a hide using hide poles, various types of nets. Obviously one thing that is extremely important is that you're comfortable, so a good seat that you can sit down on and rotate when you're shooting comfortably. Another really important thing to consider when you're building a hide is that the ground is level. So when you've walked up in a field and you've found where you want to sit, ensure that the ground is actually level where you're going to place your seat, because you need your footing to be stable all the time when you're shooting. That's very important. So we're going to start. We're going to take 4 hide poles, and I use these little clips here. I'll give you an opportunity to have a look in on those. what I use these for is I use these to tie the net to the pole to restrict it from blowing around too much and creating too much movement. So here we go. We'll go one to one side of us. We just push that in, and I'll raise them up straight away, up to about head height, just there. We just quickly get 4 poles out in front of us. It's always a good idea when you're building a hide to try and select somewhere that will be shaded by the sun. Obviously in your back garden isn't the best place for it, but it's just an example to show you how to do it. We pull these up to head height. Always nice to leave a bit of space for you and your dog. You know, you can have some pigeons later hopefully, so a bit of space for them, your game bag, a place to store your pigeons and ensure that they're cool and out of the sun. Another important factor to consider when you're shooting from a hide is that if there's 2 of you shooting, you should only ever load 1 gun at a time. For safety reasons, it's not sensible to have 2 people shooting in one hide at any one time. Now, you'll see here that I've got a net, which is a harvest net, which looks yellowy, like the colour of stubble. I also have a green net. I always feel more confident in putting 2 nets on a hide, even though these are 3-ply nets. So I take this net, I'll get it to the end, when you can find a net that is, and we just hook it over, double it round, get yourself one of your clips, clip it on. You leave that hanging, you just walk it round as quick as you can, no rush, take your time, flip it over, onto the next one, round, and what you can see there is we're starting to make a screen. You know, it's slightly too long for in the garden here, but it's a good example of what to do. Put that one on there, and there you have it. So we've also got clips down here, which I'm not going to use yet because I'm going to use these for the next layer that goes on. So there you go, that's quite see-through. I'll then take the green net, which is dark. You can see some dust coming off that there, been used a lot. I'll drape it. Now with the second net, I always try to drape it so that you've got not clean lines, because it looks unnatural. So you'll see that I'll let it sag here, and I'll let it just hang over. I'll bring it around, and I'll let it sag and hang over, and then I'll just bring it round, and I'll just get it with that top clip after I've let it sag on this side, and I'll bring it around. There you go. Now we've got some clips again, so you can pull them down if you want, clip them on. All depends on how windy it is. You don't want your hide blowing around too much. A little bit of movement of the hide doesn't matter, but there you go. Now the test now is to go inside. Okay, so there we've built a very basic hide, 4 poles, 2 nets, just to give you a bit of cover so when you're looking through. Now what I'll do is I'll come inside and I'll sit down, and here you can see that I can't shoot. The net's too high. You know, these back ones are probably okay, but these 2 front ones will need to come down to allow me to still shoot seated. A lot of people will shoot standing up, and that's okay too. This may be high enough for you. I would still be inclined to drop these down, because as birds come in and quarter away, you'll want to get round and be able to swing and swing. So I will drop these down, if I can, like so, and like so. Now, how does that? See, that to me is much more accessible. I can shoot leaning forwards for this more. If I need to, if I'm going out the side, I can stand and I can shoot over these quite comfortable. Again, room for the dog. I would make this a little bit bigger if I was shooting with 2 people. Generally the second person will be seated behind you rather than next to you. So coming from the hide, I'll just step out. You see that I've left this side loose. or you can step round the back, subject to where you are. A lot of people will put a net across the back. I haven't done that today because I'm just displaying how to make a hide in the garden, but you can put a net across the back if you haven't got enough cover or you're not up against a hedgerow. Personally, what I'd be doing if I was in a stubble field or if I was out on any kind of crop, I'll be taking foliage from the bush, ensure that you've got permission, and I would be weaving it in. As you can see, there's some old stuff there where I've done it, and I would be weaving it in, and what that does, that breaks up the shape of the hide and makes it blend into the background a lot more natural. Concealing your movement when you're in the hide is key. It's not about not being seen. Camouflage does work. Drab colours like greens are generally considered best, but it is really about movement. Another type of hide that you can get, if you just hold 2 seconds, I'll just grab this, is a lot of people now use these, which are an umbrella, believe it or not, and they're an umbrella that's used, I think they was used a lot for fishing, but nowadays people will use one of these on a bright day like today. You'll unscrew it, you'll sit it on a canter, you'll screw that in, and I'm not sure how we're going to get on here, but if this bush was in here, that would protect you from the sun on the back, and you would lay a net right over the top of that. I'm not sure if I can get in, but I'll just give you just a quick view of me in the hide. Now I've got no sun on me whatsoever, and I've got a perfect little window for me to shoot out of going forwards. Okay, so some essential things when you're in the actual hide to improve your day's shooting and give you a better chance are things like a hat, because it stops your face glowing in the sun, that you can probably see quite easily when I do this. I like to use one of these. It's called a buff, it's a neck scarf. You can put it up over your face, you can continue to breathe, and it just gives less of a barrier and keeps shaded. Gloves, you know, your hands are continuously moving in and out of the hide, and when you see it like this, one of the first things to come out, if you can just see, when I take my glove off, you can see my hand here. When you put your hand up, it's actually like a light shining. So the real art to being in the hide is actually to keep still until you're at a point when you actually really want to shoot. The wood pigeons will come into your decoys that are set out at around 20 yards to the first decoy. That's really when you want to start moving. Other things to consider when you're in the hide are definitely things like water for you, water for your dog, food for you, because sometimes wood pigeon shooting can be quite a long day if you are going for the morning and the afternoon. This time of year, early spring, you're probably better off waiting until midday before you set out and shooting later into the afternoon. Again, something to put your birds in. In this heat, we're up at around 18-20 degrees, and as it gets hotter through the summer, you will need to retrieve your shot birds off of the field as quickly as possible. When you've got your birds in, you need to keep them cool to stop them getting fly blown. The way of doing that, you can take a Hessian sack, you can lay a Hessian sack over them, put them in the shade and douse it with water. You know, the wood pigeon is fantastic food, and from the second that it's shot, it should be treated as so. You know, look after it, bring it in, keep it cool, and then hopefully dress it, which we may show you later in the videos, how to dress a wood pigeon, cook it and eat it. They're absolutely beautiful. Okay, so that concludes episode 1 of Countryside Classrooms and Wood Pigeon Decoy. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found some interesting facts about how we build hides, how we put out decoys and so on. In the next episode we're going to cover decoy patterns, we're going to cover safety in the field, we're also going to show you how to set up a rotary and a flapper, we're also going to cover debreasting a wood pigeon and pan frying a wood pigeon. So until the next time, stay safe and we hope to see you soon.